Hello.
How's it going, Amanda?
Good. Thank you for having me. I'm
Of
excited to be
course.
here.
Yeah, no, of course. Thank you for coming on. We greatly appreciate it. I was so excited when so Annie was the one who reached out to you, and I was so excited when she told me about you guys. I think this is something that is a super super underrated conversation in the Catholic world, but also in the dating world
Mhm.
as well. So, Amanda, why don't we, just to get things started off a little bit, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what WalletWin is, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Um, as you had mentioned, I am married to my business partner, Jonathan Teixeira is my husband, and we co-founded WalletWin back in 2017. And before that, our story began. We were working on staff with a missionary organization called Focus Fellowship of Catholic
Mm,
University Students. That's where we met. We worked on staff for about 9 years, and in our time on staff, that's when we not only got out of debt ourselves, we paid off about $25,000 of debt in just over 7 months, which was crazy
wow.
at the time because we were fundraising and we weren't
Yeah,
that great at
and focus
fundraising.
missionaries. Yeah.
And we had completely different financial personalities. And we had a ginormous money fight on our honeymoon, of all places. So we didn't start off on the best foot. But slowly over our first year of marriage, money became the single most unifying thing of that
Mm,
year of marriage for us. And it made us become a team. And it took a ton of work, but it really paid off.
mm,
And so not only did we see that momentum with getting out of debt, but we began to save for emergencies and for other purchases. And we quickly thereafter bought our first home. And then were able to grow our family through the miracle of adoption.
mm,
And just as time went on, we had other missionaries asking us, how did you do that? Or a lot of people had to leave staff because they couldn't fundraise enough to pay back their student loans, take care of
sure.
their bills that they had, or keep up with the expenses of their growing family, etc. So working for the church, they were able to reach a sustainable income.
Mm,
So we saw that problem, and then we had friends that were not able to enter religious life because they were carrying around student loan debt. We just started to get irritated and angry that money, this silly thing, money, was getting in the way of people saying yes to God's will in their life,
mm,
whether it was to religious life or it was to becoming, staying a missionary or even getting married and growing their family. There were young couples that were scared to be open to life because they had so much student loan debt.
sure.
And so that's when we just decided, okay, we need to do something about this. We kind of had a call within a call, a little bit of a Mother Teresa moment. She was already a religious sister and then had that unique call to serve in a different way.
Mm,
And that's how we viewed it. We knew we wanted to head into this area. We had been teaching actually Dave Ramsey's class at our
oh,
parish, and we thought that would be good enough. But we kept having to push pause as we were teaching the class to fill in the Catholic perspective or the Catholic worldview around this, because it was just some things it was slightly off, other things it was very off.
mm,
And that's when it was like the Holy Spirit just said, let's go ahead and unpack this from a Catholic perspective. And as the years have gone by since 2017, when we started that, we have been flabbergasted by how rich the treasure troves of the church really are on this topic. I
mm,
mean, I'm talking encyclicals, the scripture, the lives of the saints. We have so much around this unique topic that has kind of just gotten dusted over and not really
yeah.
unpacked in modern times. And that's kind of what the journey that we've been on, is helping thousands of individuals and families since 2017 make money something that is a springboard to saying yes to God's will, not something that hinders them
Mm,
from saying yes or being open, a source of peace and contentment in their life instead of strife and stress.
mm,
So that's kind of the mission that we've been on since we started. When we began our business together, we had two kiddos through adoption. And then within the first year of our business, we had a surprise third adoption. And then in 2024, we had three girls at first. And then in 2024, we got a phone call that we were being asked to adopt again. Our son was born 12 hours later.
wow.
Total whirlwind. So now, yeah, we're a family of 6. We live in Omaha, Nebraska, and we have been married since October of 2011. So almost
Mm.
15 years now.
Wow. That's absolutely incredible. I mean, first off, such a beautiful witness of the call to life and of parenthood through adoption. So I absolutely love that. But I mean, that is so. I love the story of having a huge fight on your honeymoon about finance. I had a very similar experience with my wife on our honeymoon because believe it or not, I tried to tell there can be a budget when it comes to honeymoons. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah,
But
but
oh, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, one of the temptations is when you share the faith, you think, okay, we're going to get married, like all is well. We're not going to let these silly things of the world like get in between us, get in the way. But nope, Catholic marriage, you're going to face the same struggles, trials, crosses, and sufferings that every other couple faces on planet Earth. But we do have the grace of the sacrament. That's pretty much the only difference. And nothing's just going to magically become one. You become one through a very painful process of refining one another
Yeah.
and getting into these conversations and disagreements and kind of choosing to love each other in the midst of it.
Yep. No, definitely 100%. And I think right through, I mean, everyone knows finances is one of the number one reasons for divorce in the world, right? But
Mhm.
I think you hit the nail on you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about how it can, right, if done well, be one of the greatest strengths of marriage as well. And the closeness you can feel to your spouse by being on the same page about finances is absolutely huge. It's breathtaking how incredible that can be. So I think that's super true. I want to so as I see some questions coming in, guys, get those Q&A questions in. I'm really excited about some of them I see here. But I want to start off a little bit, Amanda. You know, we don't shy away from hot takes here on Relate or anything like that. So I kind of want to start us off with a little hot topic, um, so to speak. So in the Catholic world, we're kind of it's an interesting situation, especially when it comes to finances, right? Most Catholics either don't have financial experience or have or secular financial experience, right?
Mhm, mhm.
um but they mix it with kind of a Catholic worldview a little bit of a much more traditionalist approach when it comes to finances and marriage and stuff like that. I know we were talking in the back of stage, right, about the pandemic of, well, my wife needs to be a stay-at-home mom and I'm going to somehow provide for my family in the world of 2026 on a theology degree, right? Or whatever. And this is coming from someone with a history degree, right? So I get it. Um so I'm curious if we could just like address, I mean, that kind of that kind of thought, right? When it comes to, okay, this is the only way to do finances in a traditional Catholic marriage and stuff like that. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that type of approach.
Yeah, I do. I have a lot of thoughts on it. And it's something that has garnered a lot of empathy in me over the last 5 to 7 years because the financial reality for a lot of young couples has shifted so dramatically.
Mm,
I think the more economic studies come out, they're saying that it's like 8 times more expensive just to get started in life. You know, those first initial milestones of graduate, get your first job, buy your first home, welcome your first child, of course, get married. Like it's 8 times more expensive than it used to be. And
mm,
although people are making more money than they ever have been making, they're just sitting there bewildered, scratching their heads, wondering why it feels so tight. I'm
mm,
having multiple 6 figure earners coming to me, not understanding how they can make this less stressful.
mm,
So if people making 6 figures are coming to me freaking out and panicking and sweating, I really feel for the young 23-year-old couple that met in college. They both went to a private Catholic college. They took out student loans. They're married and one of them does have that theology degree, and then they are expecting a baby and they want somebody to stay home, but they have $150,000 in student loans and rent is what it is now and
right.
childcare is what it is now. And they're asking us how we can make the math. And I am
Mm,
sitting here like, it doesn't work anymore. Like, without a radical departure or creative solution from your current reality of
Mm,
either you need to be open to two people working, possibly one working from home, or the husband needs to find a different path for his career.
mm,
Because if your dream is to be open to life, to have the whole gaggle of kids, 6 kids, 8 kids in the minivan, you just have to be more prepared for what that number looks like. And that number is probably going to look like between 100 and $200,000 by the time you welcome all of those kids into your home. So getting ahead of that and just mentally knowing what it is that you want to work towards, how you want to prioritize your vocation and your family growth.
mm,
And then you start with the end in mind and you begin designing a career path for your family in whatever arrangement you desire to do that supports that dream that you have together, if that
mm,
makes sense.
sure.
That is what is required now for young couples to make things happen. 10, 20 years ago, you kind of could just do a couple of things, save money by doing these hacks, maybe talk to the boss, get a raise, possibly get one side hustle, and you could kind of make it work and patch it
Right.
together. That is gone now because
Mm,
of inflation and all of the things. So winging it, the days of winging it are gone. And just good financial stewardship is what we're all called to. And we were always all called to it, but now it's just not an option. We all have to commit to really becoming that disciple of the Lord who handles money with integrity and with
mm.
virtue. And the good news is that when we start doing that, a lot of peace will follow and the numbers kind of begin to take care of themselves as you're taking those smart steps with finances.
Sure, sure. Yeah, no, I think it's and specifically about, right, this that thought of, right, the single income earner is it has to be the way, and my wife is sitting home making sour bread all day and taking care of the kids, and that thought process. I'm curious, like, because I mean, you talk to Catholic married couples all the time. I mean, that's your job to talk to them about finances. I'm curious, like, which one, like, is it the woman or the man who usually is the one struggling the most when it comes to, right, maybe having to adjust their how their dreams are coming about, if that makes sense,
Mm.
right? Um, yeah.
Yeah, I would say it manifests differently for men and women. I would say a lot of men are coming to us feeling like failures. They are feeling like they can't keep up, and then their wives or their fiancés or even their girlfriends, are following a couple people on Instagram where the husband is just this like alpha guy pulling in 500K, just like flying her around the world, cleaning lady every day, like laundry service is being done. And they're just sitting here feeling like they don't measure up and they're just never going to. And so that is a real insecurity
Mm,
and fear that a lot of men are grappling with, even though they're working really hard. Um, and then women, I would say, because women oftentimes associate money with security
mm,
and for provision, and we can feel panicked if we feel like there isn't going to be enough. And women oftentimes are the first ones to notice if there is a problem because the way that God designed women, we're the heart of the home. And so we see when somebody needs shoes and I need to go out and buy those shoes and I can't buy those shoes, we're the first ones to kind of run it up the flagpole that there's
sure.
something going on here. We're going to be the first ones to notice, even if we're not the one maybe making most of the money or any of the money. Women will notice first.
Mm,
And so there's that insecurity that a lot of women are feeling. And sometimes, they don't necessarily know how to bring it up with their husband. They don't want to make him feel less like he's not providing. It's creating a little bit of a dance for couples. And so
yeah.
often we actually have a marriage prep class that some dioceses are even using. And we even encourage newlyweds to use it to just get on the same financial page and to disarm some of those really vulnerable conversations where you can safely voice some of these fears and insecurities and wounds, because all of us even have financial wounds from our past, maybe things we saw growing up or mistakes we made that we just haven't maybe processed. And we like to teach couples how to do that in a safe way that's going to respect both parties and actually have it be something that brings you closer together instead of just kind of endlessly floating farther apart.
Sure.
Because it does happen. And you mentioned earlier, money is one of the causes of divorce. And so while most Catholic couples are not pursuing divorce as kind of the first path, money is up there as one of the most irritating and frustrating parts of their marriages.
Sure.
And we like to help make that a less painful area.
Hmm. No, 100%. I love that. Yeah, no, that's great. We have so many questions, Amanda.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
I'm
Let's
really
get to it.
excited. The audience, great job. You guys are filling up the questions. That's awesome. Annie, if we could get our first question, we'll start talking about a couple of these. This is from Juan Pablo. What are some first questions regarding money we should ask on a first date? Ooh, this is interesting. Talking about money on a first date, right? The three things you shouldn't talk about: religion, politics, and finance. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Gosh, it's one of those where you like almost need to sleuth it because
Mm,
yeah, if you come out and you're like, do you have a trust fund? Do you have debt? How much do you make? Like these are obviously oversteps. So you have to be indirect and a little bit sneaky, if you will. So one of the questions we encourage people to ask, like, what if you just kind of volunteer charities or organizations that you like to donate to?
mm,
That's an easy one because then you could kind of like, how about you? And if they're not giving at all, that's like that might be a little bit of a red flag. Or
yep.
it's kind of a gentle way to get into the conversation. Or if you have um, a story about something financial going on with roommates, you kind of bring it up through that and just see how they react or how they what kind of advice they would give in that situation. I don't know,
Sure.
but mostly you're just asking questions, getting to know each other. But if you're going to ask anything financial on the first date, it's got to be pretty coded.
Yeah. I I think probably the farthest you can go in talking finances on the first date is, "Hey, can I pay for the meal?" Yeah, that's about
Yes,
as right.
right, right. And then it does, a lot of people just don't talk about it at all until they're engaged. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
I would say the more serious conversations of finances, once you've kind of hit that point where you're not quite just going on dates and you've kind of made that transition to we are now dating to discern, that's when you begin one at a time bringing it some of those things in of like, hey, when you started your job, did you negotiate your salary or how did you learn how to go about that? You
Mm,
just start having these one-off conversations, not like a sit down where you're taking notes.
right. You're not bringing
um,
out the spreadsheets. Yeah.
No, but as you get closer, there's that window of like when you're discerning getting engaged, that couple of months leading up to it, that's when you do bust out maybe the how much debt do you have? And
Mm,
that is where you need to have those conversations.
right.
Because it shouldn't be a surprise when you're engaged, and all too often it can be.
Right.
So yeah, first date, yeah, can I pay? Great, perfect.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, what's awesome about relationships too is, right, that eventually a lot of those questions that you may have will naturally come up, right?
Mhm,
I
mhm.
remember like the first conversation my wife and I had about relationships, right? We didn't right, about finances is we didn't sit down and talk about finances. It started with a conversation of me mentioning something about that I did, Dave Ramsey's course in high school or something like that, and she was like, "Oh,
Perfect.
me too." And it started in that way, right? So it can be natural when it comes down to it. You don't need to whip out the pen and paper and start taking notes on, okay, how much debt do you have, how much debt do I have, right off the bat. Now I think you bring up an interesting point, right, where a lot of times it's not talked about until engagement, until, I mean, god forbid, until marriage, right?
Yeah, no, that
Those
definitely happens.
it 100% happens. But I mean, if you're thinking, if you're at a place where you're thinking, okay, this might be the one that I want to spend the rest of my life with, and you don't know what their financial mind is, right? Then that's a huge red flag and a huge sign that, okay, that's something you need to talk about, right?
Right.
So absolutely, I 100% agree with you there. We have This is an interesting question. This is a question that I've actually I've talked to a lot of people about um on Catholic Match, and this one's from Jody from Florida. Is it okay to have separate bank accounts from a religious perspective? Okay, so from a Catholic's perspective, I'm assuming in marriage, right? Is it okay to have separate finances?
No,
Hmm.
no. I mean, so as far as your personal bank accounts, no, you should have joint bank accounts. And for even just practical reasons of the more you have open up, what a burden to have to figure out what's paying what. You don't need that. You don't need to go tracking and hunting things down. You want simplicity in your financial life because that's what breeds peace.
Hmm.
So your checking account, your savings account should be joint. Now, practically, does it always work out that way? Not necessarily. So, for example, my husband, he has a business. He designs websites. He does it very part time, but he does that.
Hmm.
I'm not on that business. I'm not part of that business. I'm not a business partner. I'm not anything. But I have the login details. And once
Right.
a month, I go in and I do the bookkeeping for him because I'm the nerdy budget person. And then I'll even pay ourselves from it. And he's fine with that. But I have the information to get in.
Hmm.
So if there's a situation where you can't actually both be on the joint account, just make sure everybody has access to all the information for all the
Right.
accounts, and that suffices because that's complete total trust and transparency. So as you might be merging accounts, etc., that is acceptable to just at least have the knowledge of and the ability to log into all accounts. But I do really encourage, just for financial unity and for your own sanity and simplicity, just to have joint accounts.
Yeah. I mean, personal experience with this as well. I mean, I've been married for just over a year and a half now. And really not long at all. And the first, so my wife and I, we spent our first 10 months of marriage in Austria. And because of that, for a bunch of
Oh,
different reasons, we couldn't connect all of our bank accounts right away. Um,
right. And you
and
probably
once
didn't even open any in Austria.
exactly, yep. And so once we got back to the States, we combined our finances, and just the simplicity of doing that and the lack of hassle that comes with that is so amazing. While at the same time, right? So I'm much more of the financial guru type person. She likes budgeting, and I
Yeah.
like the investing side of things, like all of that type of stuff. And so when it comes to doing something like our Roth IRA or something like that, yeah, I'm the one who's doing the investing and stuff. She has all the passwords, of
Yep.
course, right? I think that's the most important thing, is to be able to, just because you guys are working together does not mean you're doing 50-50 on everything, right? This
Right.
mean, the Lord has given us different strengths for a reason.
Mhm.
And because of that, it's okay to use those as long as you are communicating about what you're doing with the spouse, that they have full access to it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a slippery slope, if you have separate finances. So 100% agree with that one. This one, okay. This one's an interesting one. And we have a couple questions like this. Okay.
Okay.
So I'll pose both questions here. Um, One super simple and the other one gets into a little more of the weeds. But first one, this one's anonymous. Is investing immoral? And then this other one, which is on a similar aspect, maybe we can address the more specific one and then go more broad. Um, this one, are index funds morally licit? They contain companies engaged in immoral behavior, which can be construed as corporation with evil, or is
Mhm.
it a remote enough corporation to be cooperation to be okay? And that's from Michael from Indiana. I'm
Sure.
curious, yeah, investing in index funds, right? Things that might have morally, um, is it morally licit, right?
Sure. Yeah, the question of, like, is investing immoral? I mean, that's so broad. The
Yeah.
answer is obviously no.
Mm.
But then that second one is more specific. And I would say, the Catholic Church's stance on this is that we always want to be as far removed as possible, if not completely opted out of any activity that would be immoral. But most investing is remote enough so that you are not cooperating materially in the activities that this, that, or the other business is doing. Now,
Mm.
there's different ways to invest. There's different indexes funds. There's different mutual funds. There's different ETFs. There's different products that you could purchase out there, different companies that make up these different funds. And as Catholics, we should do our due diligence in trying to find the best possible one that we can. And there's a variety of ways that we can go about doing that. The bishops actually just a couple of years ago, since you're kind of an investing guy, you might enjoy this. They did an entire document kind of laying out the guidelines for how the USCCB is handling its own investments,
Oh,
because
sure.
they have investments that are supporting different things going on in the church nationally and then in different cities and states, etc., different dioceses. And so they laid out what are their guidelines, and the faithful are welcome to peruse that document and
Mm,
go through it and actually apply some of those things to yourself.
mm,
There are Catholic investment advisors that you could use if that's something that you would like to. Investing is not as scary, as it can seem though. So for the sake of saving on the fees, etc., we do encourage people to maybe use maybe a fee only advisor where you just pay a fee up front to set your plan up and then kind of go from there.
sure.
Or you can set it up yourself with kind of the guidance and um, from different Catholic documents that are out there, or different interviews or conversations that have been had. I'm sure people are familiar with, a couple of years ago, there was a debate between Trent Horn and Jacob Imam. I don't know if people
Right.
have heard that conversation, but they kind of just both made their own points, and then we never really. I don't know if like the questions that people had going into that interview got answered, but there were good things discussed. And one of the things that I will encourage Catholics that feel sensitive about this, if your conscience is um, lighting up and and something to you feels wrong, even though the church may allow it, you might have a personal conviction that goes just a little bit farther.
Mm,
And that's completely fine. And so we have actually worked with people that they don't want to have anything to do with the stock market. They don't want to have anything to do with any of these funds. They don't even want to indirectly, possibly, support abortifacients or
sure.
pornography. And you know what? In that instance, there is a whole slew of investments that have nothing to do with any of that. You could get into real estate. You could start a business. You could run RV rentals. That's one of the things that we like to do. There's just, the point being is there's about 100 ways that you could go about creating an investing plan that would respect your conscience,
Mm,
even though it's not going to be projected out on every single Catholic out there. I think all of us should respect the limits that our conscience takes us to, and to just be aware of that, and to not maybe ask everybody to go by your own personal convictions if the
that's a
church
big one.
allows it. If the
Yeah.
church allows it, like it's allowed. Um, but to respect what maybe the Holy Spirit is asking you to do personally. So that's where I'll leave that conversation.
Mm. I think, yeah, no, I mean, that's an awesome response. I'm curious, like, so I actually just recently met someone who, right, they're Catholic, they're a very devout Catholic, and they are completely against anything that charges interest, right? Obviously, we usually believe that usury is the
Yeah.
charging of excessive interest, right? But this
Uh-huh.
particular gentleman he was very against the use of any interest, right? So like an HSA or anything like that, or even like a traditional bank account that you're getting like, less than 1% back on your money or something. He still believes that's a form of usury. So he's a literal keep the money under the pillow thing. So it's an interesting, and I had a long debate with him. But the reason I bring him up is because it came down to him saying, you know, I'm following my conscience, right? This is what my conscience is leading me to, right? And your conscience is, leading you somewhere else, and that's okay, right? The Lord gives us a conscience for a reason, right? It's
Mhm.
to be used in situations like that. So I think it's definitely important, right? While if you're following the teachings of the church, then you follow your conscience along with the teachings of the church as well. So I think
Right.
that's
Yeah,
we're
we have the obligation to form our consciences, and
right.
so we can't just not do anything and not even ask questions or even peek under the hood at what the church says about it. We have to at least do that.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
And then from there, if it's within the umbrella, we can move forward with peace.
Yeah, yeah. No, for sure, for sure. I love it, I love it. Annie, what other questions do we have from the chat? I see a lot of good ones. This one from Bernadette from Colorado. Bernadette, nice to see you. Is it wise to date someone who does not have a stable financial situation? Great, great question. Going back to those theology majors, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a juicy question. It's hard because, when my husband and I were dating, like, he didn't have a very great financial situation, and
Mhm.
I did. I was more of the saver. I was the diligent budgeter. All of those things. And we talked about it. Here was really the way that I knew I could move forward. And of course, we had the big fight on the honeymoon because we have different financial personalities, etc. The way I knew I could move forward and that this wouldn't be the biggest mistake of my life was that my husband is such a humble man,
Mm,
and he's teachable, and he always wants to do better. If it's possible to grow or learn, he's all in. So he's not just set in his ways, stuck in a rut, Mr. I'm doing it my way and that's it. I knew that this was true about him, that he was the type of guy that if I asked him to read a book, Dave Ramsey's book, he would do it. And then he would actually start implementing it, because if it was important to me, it would be important to him. So I saw that as one of the best traits, if for lack of a better term,
sure.
in a potential spouse. So that speaks more to me than somebody who's, just set financially, or, they
Right.
have a trust fund, or they've been handling everything perfectly. Is this somebody who wants to do better, who's willing to do the right things, to grow the skills, to do the budget, to get on the same page? You'll know that just through dating and discerning marriage with them,
Right.
if that's going to be true of them or not. And so why you have those conversations during those phases, because you can kind of figure that out. If the answer to that is no, and they're always hostile or defensive or moody or don't ask questions or don't pry, or that's none of your business, or they have any sort of behavior of they're hiding
Right.
purchases, or that's a red flag. That's an immediate, we're moving on here.
100%. And I think, I mean, from a more relationship side of things as well, right? Looking at it from, we have such a tendency, the secular world has such a tendency of saying, I need to get my life in order and then put someone in it, right?
Totally.
When
Yes.
it's when it's the completely opposite. Your life is, I mean, marriage should be the start of you guys climbing the mountain, not the peak, right?
Yes.
Where it is beautiful to be able to build a life with someone. I mean, from my own personal experience, right? My wife and I got married right out of college. We she had a lot of debt that she came into marriage with. I didn't have any debt coming into marriage with. And we got to build our life literally from scratch, from
Mhm.
-1 to now, right? And it's such a beautiful thing to be able to build it up. So don't be afraid if someone is, not where you are financially, or if you're not where the other person is financially, because that,
Yeah.
you don't need to be equally burdened financially to have a successful marriage. I mean, again, myself and my wife, right? We
Mhm,
we came
mhm.
together, we got married. We now just officially, we paid off, we became debt free as of Christmas, so very
Hey,
exciting. Um,
congratulations.
thank you. $46,000 in 11 months. So we
Amazing.
pounded it out, but at the same time, right? It's all about the ability to learn and grow, similar to
Mhm,
what you're saying with your husband,
mhm,
like the humility of your husband to be able to have those conversations and stuff like that. That's amazing, right?
mhm.
That's absolutely incredible. And so
I mean,
it's
what do you I was just gonna add on to that. What do you hear from those old couples where we all watch those interviews where
Yep.
they've been married 80 years? It usually starts with, "We got married young and dumb and
Yeah.
broke."
Yep.
That's pretty much how it always started, and their marriages are going on 70 years, and whereas the what you pointed out, and I hadn't even realized that, of the let me find myself and then yoke myself to somebody. How
Yep.
often are those marriages working out?
Exactly. Exactly.
Nil. Like,
Yep.
not very often.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's, something my dad said when I was younger. He told me, he was like, if you wait until you've got everything figured out to find the one, you will die alone, right? Because you'll
Mm,
never have everything figured out, right?
right.
It's just not the case. So yeah, yeah. Awesome. I love it. Great questions, guys. Great conversation. There's so many more. We gotta run through.
Okay,
There's
okay.
so many
Rapid
more.
fire.
We'll do some rapid fire, maybe the last 5 minutes or so, but we'll
Okay.
we'll try to get more up here. So Annie, if we could throw another question onto here. This one's from Kurt from Louisiana. What do you think of Bitcoin and all other digital currencies? Okay, so Bitcoin from a Catholic perspective. What do we think,
Yes.
Amanda?
So we partook in the Catholic Crypto Conference a few years ago,
Oh,
and it was really eye opening and um, interesting. And I think it's one of those things that the church traditionally has sat out of things, kind of like let the world kind of see how it pans out. And
sure.
then when it's too late, the church now has a stance on it, and then we're all behind.
Mm,
We saw that with technology and like online and the internet, and the church has kind of been lagging ever since.
sure.
We see the Holy Father, like with AI. He doesn't want to wait till the other side. He's
Mm,
ahead of it, prophetic in his name, Leo, kind of with the Industrial Revolution, now the AI revolution upon us. So I do think Catholics have an obligation to participate in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space. Now, to what degree, that is just going to depend on your situation. I think everybody should do their own research and learn. And at the end of the day, we don't really know how this is going to shake out. But the Trump administration has been rolling out policy after policy after policy that are paving the way that this is likely going to be the future. And
mm,
so what we have been, but we also don't know. And we practice prudence with finances. And so, what we've been telling our Catholic Money Academy members is that probably somewhere between 10 to 20% of your money that you're going to invest anyway, you could prudently do it in a cryptocurrency or a
mm,
Bitcoin, if that's something that's of interest to you. And so that's what we've personally done. But again, that money could go poof in the night and be gone,
right.
but it wouldn't destroy us. But if it doesn't go poof in the night, then we're going to have a lot to be able to share with the new evangelization, and
Sure.
that'll be great. Um, but we're just kind of viewing it as an experiment because right now it's essentially the wild, wild west,
Mm,
and nobody really knows where this thing's going.
right.
But Catholics should participate, can participate, and um, as long as you're at a point where you're at the stage where you're ready to be investing, you could be doing anywhere from 10 to 20% of that money.
Mm. And I guess, so I'm curious, like the rationale between the 10 to 20%, is that just something you've noticed over time, like is a good number, or how did we get to that number?
Yeah, it's just that amount of number is cautious enough where you're not going to never be able to retire.
Mm, sure, sure.
So it's just within the range of caution in case this doesn't pan out.
Mm,
Like
sure.
we couldn't prudently tell people to go all in.
Right.
Even if we might think even if we're on the train that thinks it's going all in, it just wouldn't be prudent to say that because
Mm,
there's just no proof of that.
sure, sure. No, I love that. That's great. This one's fun. A little change up here we have. Um, Unironically, what if money talk gives her the ick? I've had this happen twice now, right? What if your prospective partner doesn't want to talk about money, right? How do we
Mhm.
how do we handle this in a relationship?
Sure, it could be coming from a couple different places. I guess first would be if you're bringing it up at the wrong moment
Mm.
or in the wrong context or with the wrong tone. Either there could be
It's
some
very,
new
very true.
things or like the wrong cycle day. Like women, there could be some variables there where you might just need to gain more insight into getting into the conversation in a
Mm,
way that is not offensive or irritating or causing panic or stress. Now, if it's not any of that and it's just some women really do feel insecure about money. They feel like it's something that's beyond them. They feel like that, this is something that like their parents handled, and they just want to get married and they want a spouse to take care of it, and they just kind of want to bury their heads in the sand.
Right.
That's for sure women out there, some women. And that is something that needs to be challenged, because that's going to be an ongoing problem in marriage. Just not wanting to engage about that.
Mm.
There's probably some sort of wound or fear or insecurity underneath it.
Right.
And before you go talk brass tacks about finances, you've got to figure out what that wound is. And she needs to feel safe talking about finances and not judged, not whatever her money causes her brain to think about herself. So you have to do some lifting there and some detective work to figure out what is it. And she might need to do some reflecting herself of like, why is it that this causes me so much fear and just grossness?
Right. Right. And I think I mean, it's okay for people not like talking about money, right? That in and of itself is not a bad thing, right? But I think, I mean, it can, obviously we don't know this person's situation, right? With this happening twice to you. But at the same time, right? It's first look inwards, right? Like you said, how can I change my
Mhm.
approach to this, right? I mean, with a lot of guys I've talked to, it's simply you're talking about it too early, right? And
Yeah.
you're scaring them away in that sense, right? I'm not saying that's the case with this person, but right? Am I talking about it too early? Am I talking about it too aggressively, right?
Yeah.
First look at yourself, right? And if you've pulled the log out of your own eye, right, then you can turn to your boyfriend or girlfriend, right, and be like, okay, now what is it in their life that could possibly be causing this response as well, right?
Yeah.
um yeah, so that's the advice I'd give when it comes to this. I mean, we obviously don't know the exact details from it, but yeah, look at yourself first, right, before you look at your partner. But awesome. Some other questions here. Let's see. Do-do-do-do-do. This one's kind of a hot topic right now, and I've seen a couple questions about precious metals right now. Is the
Mm.
big thing, as I'm sure you're aware. I had somebody asking about specifically your thoughts on precious metals, and then also this one, um, Thomas from Australia. I've heard about people abandoning the dollar for gold. I was just curious your thoughts. So if I mean we just want to crack open that can of worms, I mean, for those of you who aren't paying attention to the markets, right? The dollar, the gold and precious metals has
Oh, gold's
skyrocketed over the
good.
past year and
Yep.
plummeted in the last week or so. Yeah. So I'm curious
Yep.
your takes on everything that's happening when it comes to this.
I don't feel like I have enough knowledge in that specific area.
Mm.
Personally, we're not abandoning the dollar. We're not transitioning everything over to that. I do think if you try to get in now, it's probably about to its peak.
Right.
And anytime you're just trying to follow trends and fads, it's just not a recipe for long-term financial success. And it's a good recipe for causing yourself a panic attack.
Yeah.
So we don't do things like that. It would probably be akin to the Bitcoin type of thing if you wanted to
Sure.
go ahead and to put 10 to 20% of your investments into something like that. I'd put it in that category. Um, I just don't think there's been enough proof that this is going to last.
Sure. Yeah. No, for sure. For sure. I love it. We have this one from Ayan, I think that's how you pronounce it. Excuse me, sorry if I butchered your name. What are some resources the church has on building business and handling finances? Why is there such a strong myth that God doesn't want us to be rich? So kind of a two-parter here. We can
Okay.
go address either one first, whichever one you'd like, but kind of a two-parter here.
Yeah. I mean, our business is one of the, I don't think the church would call us an official resource, but we are a good resource that teaches about finances from a Catholic
Yeah,
perspective, and
watch
also
their podcast.
businesses. We talk about different business strategies or starting businesses, etc. There's also Sent Ventures. They are kind of a ministry for entrepreneurs in the church. I was part of the fellowship a few years ago. Great community, fantastic place to be if you're looking for just entrepreneurship from a Catholic perspective, and good, healthy money mindsets. I will say this: I don't think it's a myth
Hmm.
that God doesn't. How was it phrased again? God does not want
God
us
doesn't want us to be wealthy, I think.
to be wealthy. I think. Well, I think that that's a subjective term.
Sure.
It's hard to actually pin down what that means, but scripture and the lives of the saints and the encyclicals and the catechism, they're pretty much all aligned that we're called to always have poverty of spirit, and
Yeah.
that wealth should never own us. We should be, it's something we're stewarding. It's a resource. So yes, we're all going to be called to steward different amounts in our life, and that's something that each disciple needs to discern individually, and also do constant reflection and examination around. The more wealth you do build, the more almost suspicious of yourself, and you need to build in um, more checks and balances just to make sure that wealth always stays at a good place of health,
Mm.
and that it never, because in St. Ignatius's exercises, he's known for writing the 30-day spiritual exercises, etc. He always talks about how money and power are the first two easiest hanging fruits that Satan will use to get into our life in some
Mm.
capacity or some way. And so we're just naive if we don't be aware of that. And that does not mean that we shouldn't have any money, but it means that we should be cautious and strategic as we're building wealth, always making sure that we're increasing our generosity, keeping our eyes fixed on the Lord, designing our budgets with God, probably praying before we make the budget, asking Him how He wants us to allot these dollars, etc. So, and there's also a really interesting book written by Father Thomas Dubay called Happy Are You Poor, that
Mm.
would probably ruffle some feathers here as well. And again, he's not saying that we're called to be poor, but he's definitely saying God doesn't call us to be rich. So there's a difference there. We're all going to be entrusted with different material resources this side of heaven, but it is really important that we pay attention to making sure we're handling those wisely, and that if they ever start to become more of a priority than they should be, we should then reflect on what to do. But yes, especially business owners, when you do own a business, you oftentimes do have a lot more money that does come into your world.
Right.
And just making sure you have a plan for that before it happens is one of the best strategies that we teach people, because oftentimes people will just kind of fall into money, if they will, and then make a ton of mistakes, and then they're kind of trying to repair it on the back end. But
Mm.
yes, good question. And I hope that was an answer. It might not have been a satisfying one, though.
Yeah, no, I mean I think it's a really important clarification, right? Um, right. The classic that says it's harder for a rich man to, it's harder for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of God, right? He doesn't necessarily say financially rich, right? When it comes to that, right? He specifically says rich, right? And we're called to be poor in spirit, right?
Yes.
Um, first and foremost, right? That's the most important. Okay, we've got about 7 minutes. I want to respect your time, Amanda, for here, but would you be good if we did it? There's a lot of questions left, so would you be good if we did some rapid fire 30-second
Yeah.
answers?
I'll keep my answers to like 30 seconds.
All right, and I'll try not to add any comments. That's usually the issue when it comes to these things. But
Well, it's
all
nice that
right,
it's conversational.
Annie, let's see some of our remaining questions here. All right. If someone who has the ability to just wing, or if I'm someone who has the ability to just wing it, how do I begin to have a budget? Great question.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, you don't have the ability to wing it. Like there's no income level where you should not be budgeting, because that's just the only way we can practice virtue with money and be accountable to the Lord that we're being the best stewards possible is to budget.
Hmm.
So no more winging it. You need to sit down and do the budgeting.
Yeah, budget.
We actually have a free resource on this. CatholicBudgetGuide.com is where you can go and just get the resource and the training on that. But yeah, there's never an income where you're just going to be exempt from handling money with virtue and budgeting.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. That's great. And can you say the what was the website
Catholic
again?
CatholicBudgetGuide.com. I think.
CatholicBudgetGuy.com. Awesome. Awesome. We'll have Annie put it in the chat as well if anyone's interested with that one. That's a great resource. Awesome. All right, Annie, next question. How early is too early to combine finances? Do you recommend waiting until after you are married, or should you do so beforehand? This is an
As
interesting
soon
one.
as you get home from the honeymoon.
Hmm.
Yeah, not before.
I was going to say, I know a lot of people who, right, they're trying to plan a wedding and trying to figure out the finances, so they do it while they're engaged and then, end up breaking off the engagement or something like that. Right?
Yeah, let the ink dry.
Mm, fair enough.
Yeah,
In the
it's
limo.
not something you're going to want to have to ever undo, and you just don't always know.
That's very fair.
Wait.
Yeah, absolutely. Wait until marriage.
Now you could create a shared savings account just for wedding stuff, but that's different. That's not really combined finances. That would be like one savings account you're participating in together. But
Sure.
yeah, that could be just dissolved if things were cut off.
Sure. Awesome. All right. Not a finance question, but it's not a common name. Are you related to Mark's Teixeira? Wait, how do you pronounce your last name again? Sorry.
It's Teixeira, but it
Teixeira.
probably is Teixeira because we're from the Azores in Portugal. We're not related to Mark.
Good. Had to ask. You had to ask. All right. Awesome. Next question, Annie. What do you think of Daniel Celo?
I don't know who that is. Should I? Do you know?
I also don't know who that is.
I'm so sorry.
I hope he's a good guy.
I wish him well.
Yeah, I'm sure he's great. That's the opinion on that one. Oh, Annie's coming on. I bet she knows.
I had to look it up too. Sorry, and I'm not using my new camera, Tony. I apologize. But he's been living off the grid since like 2000. He's like called the no money man or something like that.
Oh.
So what's your opinion on somebody just living completely off the grid, Amanda, and just using no money? Do you have an opinion?
I mean, he's a hermit. That sounds awesome. Sometimes in my busy life, I could go for a hermitage.
I was gonna say I have a sister who's a Franciscan nun, and she basically does that. So
yeah, like you're describing a religious, and I think that they would say they feel I don't know. I think that they feel a lot of freedom around not having to engage with and figure out all of the things of the world, and that's a gift. Even though they sometimes go without. It's a unique call and a unique vocation. So if you're feeling the pull, maybe discern.
Fair enough. This one's a fun one. Just popped up here, so Annie, I'm going to override you here. Does homeschooling save money?
It can. We homeschooled for 6 years, and we actually just enrolled our kids in a school and started them 1 month ago in January. Yeah, it can. And then if you live in certain states like Florida, they'll actually give you money. There's probably 5 or 6 states that have voucher systems.
Ohio's one.
Yeah, where they'll actually pay for the stuff. So for those people, it's an amazing deal. You're actually even getting to pay for tutors and extracurriculars and all of that. So it can be as expensive as you allow it, but it could also be it can be a low cost or a high cost. It just depends on what you want to do. But getting into just know what you want to purchase before you start purchasing. Because a lot of moms will just buy this curriculum because they were told it was good. And then they actually start to use it and then they hate it. So just go to a veteran homeschooling mom, look at all their curriculum, all the materials they're using, actually hold those things in your hands. And then you can make an educated decision on what you're going to use.
Sure.
Because that's the biggest waste is buying curriculum that you don't use.
Yeah. And for the love of God, if you're homeschooling your kids, don't use Saxon math. Or just please, as a homeschooled kid myself.
Oh no, the school we just enrolled our kids, they're doing Saxon. Oh my goodness. Am I torturing and scarring them?
I hated Saxon math, but I'm sure it's great. It's like every homeschooled mom uses it, but I just had to throw that in there. That's awesome. I'm I'm a high school history teacher is what I do at a classical Chesterton Academy.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean, homeschooling is exactly what you make out of it, right?
Mhm.
And it's 100% how much effort you as the parent want to put into it, right? And so it 100% can save you money, 100% can be an amazing education for your children if that's something you want to invest, maybe not the money, right, but the time in. If you want to invest the time into it, it can be. Or send them to my school. I would teach them for cheap.
Yeah.
But I digress. Okay. Um, I'm looking at here. Our time just turned the hour. So Amanda, I think we'll cut it there.
Okay.
If that's fine with you. But we'll cut it there here. Thank you so much. Amanda, could you tell everyone where to find you guys, right? How can they look you up? Yeah.
Sure. So we have the Catholic Money Show podcast. We're on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And then we have a membership called the Catholic Money Academy. And in there we have an online course that's kind of similar to that Dave Ramsey foundational course that he offers. But we also provide ongoing financial formation. So we're teaching different side hustles that are working for people. We're talking money saving strategies. We're bringing in Catholic investment advisors to talk about using 529s or what plan we should get in place for our kids' education. We're constantly doing ongoing formation. So that's over at CatholicMoneyAcademy.com. And that's probably good for now. That's enough to share.
Fair enough. And of course, we'll throw that, Annie. We'll throw that in the chat as well for anyone who wants to look that up. That's an amazing resource and something that is so needed in our Catholic world. So Amanda, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on tonight. You've been an
Welcome.
absolute joy. We've had so much fun having you on, and yeah, maybe we'll have to have next time you and your husband on as well. That could be fun to do
He's
a little.
more fun than I am.
We haven't done a couples. What did you say, sir?
He's more fun than I am.
No, you're great. We haven't had a couple on the Real Catholic Voices in a while, so that could be fun. But anyway, awesome. Amanda, we'll get you backstage. I'll close out here tonight, but thank you so much for being on tonight. We greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.